What's going on, everybody? So, you're about to watch a recording from June 23rd, and it's a lengthy discussion about Ethereum and the high conviction kind of thesis as to why I'm able to target 4,000 and then price discovery. And this is in obviously well before any of that happens. So, I really deeply believe that a great way to gain a lot of knowledge is in the benefit of hindsight. So you're going to see the cadence of which I'm speaking about my decision making process and how I'm viewing and approaching the market and looking to execute. And I hope that that proves to be enlightening to you in some way, shape, or form, because obviously I did not know what the market would actually go on to do, even when or if I got my triggers. I didn't know when bottoms would be put in. I didn't know that I was going to get, reclaims, anything along those lines. So you do know that. You do know that Ethereum is currently, as of this recording today, is trading at 4,500 and just made new all-time highs as of a month ago. With that said, let's get into the video. So what I was just talking about is I love confluence. I love being able to rationalize the same idea from multiple different perspectives. So anything where I have the ability to make an argument from, hey, we have a significant level in this region and a high time frame trend and a very high time frame trend, right? It's not just that there's confluence, it's also that the context becomes incredibly favorable, right? Because remember, on the way up throughout this Ethereum rally, Ethereum is just a great example for this, right? What I mean by context and scaling assumptions and confluence and all that kind of stuff. On the way up on Ethereum, it's not that we neglected the uptrend. We didn't do that. We saw a 4-month-long negative 65% downtrend finally start to reverse, and we acknowledged it. We said, hey, don't scoff at this. Don't write it off. This is bullish, right? We're doing something significantly different. Believe me, the entire premise as to my system is when I see something different, it is quite literally in my best interest to make sure that I'm trying to expose myself or decrease my exposure based off of that something different. You will never hear me, see something significant like a 4-month, trend shift and then say, oh, that's probably nothing. Who cares? I'll never say that, right? Because if it happened for 4 months or wasn't able to happen for 4 months and here it is happening today, logic and just simple assumptions allow me to kind of speculate that, oh, we're finally going to get a different outcome. So unfortunately, even though that was the analysis that we made, we had to contextualize it. We had to break it down and say, okay, but what about the other puzzle, pieces to the puzzle? What about the other sectors? So the environment, right? The higher time frames than just, multi-month long trending movements, multi-month long, several month long, not just multi, or even yearly kind of trending movements, right? And Ethereum is helping, or I'm sorry, Ethereum is, portraying those kinds of movements using something like 200 weeklies or even 200 dailies, right? So even though we were able to acknowledge significant strength, there were still significantly larger bearish arguments, residing on the chart above our heads. And this is not just my bias. This is not, I hate Vitalik. I'm the person that has Ethereum ledger investments and I have not taken a single lick of profit since 2017, 2018. And I'm the one telling you, hey, just be aware, this could just be overthrow past the 200 weeklies. We might as well just, find some resistance around 200 dailies. And then for all we know, we continue the downtrend across the board. All of a sudden, when price is trading negative 20% lower, now we realize that that's not a crazy analysis to have made, right? We allowed ourselves to foresee that possibility with a decent amount of probability because we knew the context. We understood the objective analysis at hand, right? The beauty in Ethereum, and this goes for any chart, it's just that it's not even necessarily Ethereum, but when I'm talking about like what trades am I going to be more drawn to, right? There's always levels to this shit. Even though, Solana and Hype might reclaim their high time frame trends at the exact same time, which one is Mercury going to be drawn to? And these are questions that I get pretty frequently. So let me help you, get an insight to my brain so you can kind of see where my thoughts reside. And maybe you can use that as like influence to, skew your thoughts along the same degree. But personally, I love confluence, right? I love being able to make the same analysis through and through from different standpoints. And here's the thing. Before I continue, what I don't want you to do is say, oh, so we love confluence. So that means that even though I've never used RSI before, I should go turn on RSI and look for confluence. And even though I've never used stochastic RSI, I should go turn that on too. And I should draw some trend lines to even, vindicate myself further. And then I should, use this other obscure indicator that I saw some random crypto Twitter influencer use one time randomly, right? And cherry picked results. No, don't do that. No, we're not searching for arguments. We're not creating arguments out of thin air. We objectively draw out the chart in the way that makes sense to us using our system that is going to get us through this market, navigate through the market, up, down, sideways, extreme, mundane chop. We're going to use that system, and eventually what's going to happen is amazing opportunities are going to smack us in the face and say, hey, by the way, I'm an amazing opportunity. We're not searching for the arguments. Please remember, the greatest forecasters that I know don't consider themselves forecasters. Because 99.99% of the time, there's nothing to make a forecast on. Oh, but then few and far between times, all of a sudden the stars align, and 3 times a year they make some kind of outlandish forecast, and they just so happen to be correct because everything lined up and made a lot of sense, right? It was very high conviction, and it just seemed like an amazing asymmetric kind of opportunity, right? The other 364 days out of the year, they're not making any forecasts. There's nothing to forecast on, right? And that just kind of goes, hand in hand with markets, the dynamics of markets. There's not every opportunity is created equal, right? Because markets are dynamic, they're not static. So the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because of that idea, but also because, hey, Mercury, where are we going to look to take those trades if and when they trigger? Because what's going to end up happening is as Solana is reclaiming a high time frame trend, so are 150 other coins in the market. So you're going to start to feel overwhelmed, right? And this is why we just remind ourselves that opportunity is always abundant. So whether that happens a day from now or 5 weeks from now or 5 months from now, it doesn't matter. Eventually, that's more than likely going to be the case, right? When we start to see a flurry of opportunity come back into the market, it's going to be exactly that. It's going to be a flurry. It's going to be a wave of opportunities. You're going to go from, oh my God, I just got stopped out, blah, 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 trend just broke down for the first time in 2 months, 3 months, 3 weeks, whatever. And I just took, a string of losses. I just chipped away the first chip away of my drawdown, right? And then all of a sudden, oh my God, I don't have enough money to allocate to all of the opportunities that I see in front of my face right now. So we have to be picky and choosy with which ones we're, allocating towards. I love confluence. So this time around, right? Please remember all the, ramblings about Ethereum leading up into today's price action. This time around, it's not nearly as contextualized and fragmented and weird and convoluted and complex and whatever other C word you want to throw at it. It's not nearly any of that. It is, hey, by the way, just so happens to be, if we were to reclaim the 4-hour 200s, right, in let's say like 5 days from now, right? 5 days from now, we can go somewhere around like maybe here. They probably won't skew that drastically. Let's try to get a more accurate kind of portrayal, right? So 5 days from now, this is what the 4-hour 200s will look like. If all of a sudden Ethereum starts to do this, right, along 4-hour 200s, it's not just that we're reclaiming 4-hour 200s. It's also that we're deviating back inside of this range, right? And the simple assumption from there, from a range trader standpoint, would be that range lows go to mid-range, go to range highs. But wait a minute. If we're going to go to range highs and we're back above high time frame trends, the assumption is that we're going to get to here, right? Because that's like the range high, more or less. I know that's not a very straight line, but you get the idea. If the assumption is that we're going to get to all the way over here, then wait a minute. The 200 dailies, we should be well above them. Not just, oh, we're kind of trading above them. We threaten a rally. Oh, yeah, a breakout trade. Yay, woohoo. No, we would be very strongly and very convincingly shifting that trend as well. This is what price action would look like. So all of a sudden, we can scale the assumption of 4-hour 200 MA's high time frame setup reclaim in tandem with deviating back inside of this, even though it's a high time frame range, we're going to say lower time frame, right? Lower than the trend that helps us portray several month-long movements, right? It's obviously much lower time frame than that. I know that it's still a 1 month-long range, but there's levels to this shit, right? If all of a sudden we're reclaiming that general region, then we're also kind of reclaiming the higher time frame inflection point as well. So as opposed to, oh, yay, we reclaim 4-hour 200s, but you still have to worry about final boss, final boss, final boss. No, now it would be, oh, yay, we reclaim 4-hour 200s, we're probably going to go to 4K. This is not an Ethereum exclusive analysis. This goes for whatever chart it beautifully lines up that way for, right? This is if it happens, then that's what it is, right? It's like, that's the context of that particular chart. Ethereum just so happens to be a great example of how convoluted and how bullshitty and how annoyingly complex the analysis was on the way up, even though on the 4-hour time frame, it was just simply, we're above the green and blue line, number go higher, right? Yeah, sure. But we're not robots. And also, we don't have room temperature IQ. We have a little bit higher than that at minimum, right? I would imagine. So we understand what's happening on the higher timeframes as well, and rightfully so, because this is what we got as a result. The market has proved to us that the consolidation inside of these 200 dailies was not accumulation. It wasn't reaccumulation. It wasn't fuel for the next leg higher. It was distribution. We were trading in that region explicitly because people wanted to sell Ethereum in that region. They wanted to get rid of their long-term bags, right? And, oh, by the way, guys, in hindsight, what that might mean is that this movement above the 200 weeklies might have been an overthrow of a bearish retest, similar to how this was an overthrow of a bullish retest before we just simply continued the trend in that same exact direction. Do you see how drastically that analysis scales all of a sudden? It's like, shocker, wait a minute, Mercury. We were talking about the possibility of Ethereum breaking out of the 200 dailies and potentially continuing the rally into 4,000, and now all of a sudden I should be anticipating Ethereum three digits? What? How does that make sense? Exactly. Good thing we fucking saw it coming. Good thing it's not a shocker all of a sudden, right? Good thing we reminded ourselves about that objective analysis from a more contextualized standpoint for the entire 2 months that Ethereum was uptrending, right? And even before then. Oh, but all of a sudden, if we're even just, let's say, 10% higher from current prices, reclaiming range lows definitively, right? A conclusive, a very convincing reclaim, an obvious shift of the 4-hour 200s back as into trend support, then what that might mean is, wait a minute, this analysis is not correct. Because in hindsight, once again, in hindsight, this was actually a bullish retest of these 200 weeklies, and now we can kind of validate that further via a reclaim of 4-hour 200s, via a reclaim of that range low. Oh, and by the way, we are very strongly above those 200 dailies. We couldn't say that the last time. We said, yeah, we're breaking out, and it makes more sense for me from a risk-reward standpoint to bet on the further breakout. Yeah, but this time, oh my God, who's going to argue that we're still below the 200 daily moving averages, if we reclaim them, and this is what price looks like, and they're all the way down here, and I'm going to change the color red in a second. I hate this color, but who's going to say that we're not reclaiming them? Oh, and by the way, in hindsight, that might mean that we actually bullishly retested the 200 weeklies, and now every single time frame across the board, snowball immediately into a snowman, we can justify targeting 4,000. Do you see how jumpy that analysis is? Do you see how appealing it is to play into those kinds of theses? Because lower time frame, much more actionable, much more fluid kind of movements and occurrences in this market allow us to scale the assumption to a unbelievably larger degree. All because confluence. All because all the regions as to what we care about on this chart are all kind of at the exact same general region. So we can use lower time frame occurrences to scale into what is our bias and what is our, anticipated direction on a much more drastic kind of a scale. That's the appeal to want to trade Ethereum. There's no appeal otherwise, because this is a drastic underperformer, right? If your idea is, which by the way, this is going to happen, I don't know if it's in 2025, or maybe it's 2026, or maybe 2027, or 28, or 29, or 2030, or maybe it's sometime, in our next lifetimes and we're not on this earth anymore. I don't know, but it's going to happen eventually. There's going to be a quote unquote hated rally on Ethereum. And you know why that is? Because every trend breaks. And Ethereum BTC has been in the downtrend for the past 2.5 years. So all of a sudden, that trend is going to shift and you're going to go, oh, duh, it's a hated rally. It's so obvious in hindsight. How do we get to the point where the hated rally even starts? You had to see it coming. You had to watch the strength become strength. And all of a sudden, when it does, it's going to feel obvious in hindsight. That's because it was. It was obvious in real time. Because we watched as 4-hour 200s got reclaimed a month ago, 2 months ago. We watched us start to trade above and threaten a bigger breakout above 200 weeklies. We watched as price consolidated inside of 200 dailies. We watched as all these levels and all these significant kind of regions kind of coincided with each other. And then we watched price put in, potentially, I don't know, a higher low on the weekly, and then continue in the form of further strength, right, and compound onto that idea. And we watched price break out of that month-long range, and we watched price make a higher high on the weekly, and we watched and we watched and we watched. So watch for it, right? That doesn't mean it has to be your base case. And no, I'm not telling you, oh, you should be bidding the range lows, right? Because objectively, this is range lows support. Right? It is. Let's be honest. Oh, you need to be bidding the range lows right here or else you're going to miss out on the hated rally. That's not what I said. Don't twist my words. I didn't say anything along those lines. If anything, I have absolutely zero interest bidding Ethereum right here, right now. Or even 5% lower when we're trading at these range lows. I don't have any interest, because for me, it's an underperformer. It's incredibly unappealing for me to want to bid this. I'd much rather go bid the range lows on hype, right? Or literally anything else, right? Almost anything else. I would much rather be drawn to those kinds of things. But so then why, Mercury? Why would Ethereum get added to the watch list if there's no interest in you trading it right here, right now? And the only interest is if we manage to reclaim a high time frame trend, which by the way, Mercury, you just said yourself, if Ethereum is reclaiming a high time frame trend, chances are so are 150 other coins in the market. So why not pick one of those other 150 coins and not Ethereum? Because of confluence, because of context, because of the potential reward for if and when something happens, and because of how clean and clear it has been to objectively acknowledge what is different and what's happening on that chart. Please recall, there was a person that came into the free Discord and as price was trading here said, man, this Ethereum rally, that's pretty crazy. It just came out of nowhere. No, it didn't. It didn't come out of nowhere. It came after 2 weeks of having flipped a 4-month-long negative 65% downtrend. What do you mean it came out of nowhere? It is impossible to be caught off guard by normal market movements. And what you need to realize is every single market movement is inherently normal. It's just your job to be able to express the courage to be able to actually execute off of them. It's much easier to attain that courage, that strong gut conviction, when you can make the same damn argument through and through, up, 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 and more up from every single time frame across across multiple different perspectives. It's significantly easier to convince and send a signal from our brain, right? Our eyes look at the chart, we look at random fucking green and blue lines and gray boxes and some squiggly lines on a chart. We look at that, our brain digests that information, and then it sends a signal down to gut as to why we're allowed to press the button the way that we're pressing it, or disallow pressing the button, refrain from it. That seamlessness of that, process is absolutely going to have a direct impact in how fluidly you can trade markets, enter and exit. Because if you know why you entered 4-hour 200s Ethereum, market structure shift on the daily, etc., in the first place 2 months ago, then you also understand why the fuck you would want to get out of Ethereum. And if you know why the hell you wanted to get out of Ethereum, you absolutely know why you want to get back in. Now, wouldn't you want to get back in? If you manage to turn your brain off and say, oh my God, wow, look at that. We're doing something different we haven't been able to do in 4 months. Oh, so maybe we do something different. And all of a sudden you're rewarded with 60% uptrend. Context is not even favorable. We're still being objective, right? We're still saying, oh, but we still have this to worry about and that to worry about and that to worry about. And yet you were still given 60% gains as a result. Wouldn't you be eager to jump back into that trend when all of a sudden the next time around the context changes dramatically?